Gavin for the last minute 11th hour DJ. My publisher Shannon Oki, Last Exit Books. This is an awesome place, and you guys obviously for coming out here. So I thought I'd just start by, well, I guess I'll tell a little bit about the book and then just read a little and then answer questions. I think people have been asking questions all night, so I think the stories people want to hear more than actually hearing me reading. So the book, Wivenhoe Park, is based on, well, Wivenhoe Park is the name of a famous landscape painting by John Constable, but it's also the name of the property. It's the property where the University of Essex is in Colchester, England. It's about an hour train ride northeast of London, and I studied there for a year in the mid-'80s, and that year pretty much changed my life. I was kind of obsessed with rock and roll. Living in England for a year just cemented the deal for me. It basically convinced me that it's a mistake to grow up, and so just do what you have to do, but rock and roll saves lives. So that's kind of what this book is all about. A friend of mine who's too smart to be on Facebook, Pat Vaz, who made some amazing records with Daydream Nation, described the book as a love letter to rock and roll, and I mean that's kind of what it is. That's what it is. So I'm going to read from the second chapter. It's early on in the book. The main character, Drew, who is based off of me, is a kid from Michigan. He's down on his luck. His best friend is kind of become a drug dealer, just kind of off the rails. His heart's been broken by a goth girl named Christine. He decides, fuck it, I'm going to England for a year, studying abroad, and this is a chapter called Thompson Twins from Iowa, where he, based true event. I met some kids from Iowa, at the airport, Detroit Metro Airport, and flew across the Atlantic, got really drunk with these new wave kids from Iowa, and so Thompson Twins of Iowa, for wherever these guys are, shout out to the Thompson Twins of Iowa. Mm-hmm. I'm on my way to the airport. I was hoping to get into the London School of Economics. After all, Mick Jagger briefly attended there, but ended up settling for University of Essex in Colchester, an hour train ride northeast of the capital, just off the coast, as close to London as an underachieving 3.0 GPA will allow. Immediately before the exit, I see a sign that says, "Welcome to Romulus, Gateway to the World," proudly displaying the fact that the lifeless Detroit suburbs' only claim to fame is an international airport, a portal to better places. Hopefully it's a good omen. My mom and dad are in front, and I'm stretched out in the back, trying to cop my best British rock star impression. I'm wearing my leather jacket over a Sisters of Mercy t-shirt, dark blue 501s, black Chuck Taylors, and a pair of Ray-Bans, even though I know it's starting to get much too dark for that. I pack lightly, strategically so, as if embarking on a tour of duty. A few pairs of jeans, an assortment of t-shirts, a black sweater, a few plain black and white dress shirts, a pair of Doc Martens, and as many cassettes as I could cram into my suitcase's crevices. My dad keeps reminding me that I'm going there to study and tells me to look up some professor he knew from his Oxford days. My mom tells me not to drink too much and keeps scolding me for not taking along a blazer in case I might get invited to social functions. I laugh and say, "This isn't Chariots of Fire, Mom, it's 1985. I get along with my mom and dad okay, but usually I feel like the black sheep in my family. My dad is a professor and my mom is an editor for an academic press. If you've ever seen the TV series Family Ties, you get the idea. Like the Keatons, my folks are smug know-it-all liberals whose opinions on life seem to be molded by public radio and the New York Times. It's not like I'm a Republican douche like their son who's played by Michael J. Fox. I just see through their crap. My mom and dad talk about the horrors of teen pregnancy and drug abuse in the inner city, yet neither of them has ever asked if I'm sexually active or I do drugs. I can guarantee they never asked my older brother, Paul. Paul went to Princeton, and now he's at Harvard, pursuing a PhD. He reminds me of Angelic Kevin in the Undertone song, My Perfect Cousin, though his specialty isn't economics, math, physics, or bionics, but rather political science. He's been a straight A student his whole life and president of multiple student clubs and organizations. I'm the only one in the family that prefers sports to theater, rock and roll to classical. In my world, Buzzcocks trump Beethoven, The Cure crushes Chopin, and Sisters of Mercy slay Tchaikovsky. When we get to the international terminal, I feel like a little kid getting dropped off at school for the first time. I've never really been away from home for more than a week. Living in an on-campus apartment 5 miles from my parents' house doesn't really cut it. Paul went away for college, but I opted to stay at home against my parents' wishes and accept a partial scholarship to run cross-country and track at the University of Michigan. I start to feel a little nervous and scared, the same kind of jitters I used to get before a big race. And as if on cue, I remove my shades. I say goodbye to my folks and remain on the curbside paralyzed, watching and waving until Dad's trusty old Volvo fades into the distance. I feel free, but it also feels weird. Once inside, I navigate my way through the terminal to the baggage check-in area, turn over my suitcase, and with my backpack slung over my right shoulder, make my way to the Pan Am gate. I have about an hour to kill before boarding the red-eye flight that should have me in London by 7 a.m. A lot of the passengers seem to be my age, presumably heading off to an assortment of colleges and universities in the UK. Most seem pretty uninteresting. Girls clad in sorority sweatshirts and Benetton tops, guys in button-downs or Ralph Lauren polos worn with pop collars and an array of loud and obnoxious colors. On a quick, cursory glance, I spot orange, lime green, yellow, and pink. I notice two guys who stand out amongst the Reagan youth. One is tall with long blonde hair, immaculately spiked and gelled on top like Mike Peters from The Alarm, while his counterpart looks like Tom Bailey, the singer from the Thompson Twins. Mike is wearing a padded blue blazer over a horizontally striped black and white t-shirt, looking very much like an extra from Duran Duran's Rio video, or maybe even Don Johnson's future sidekick in Miami Vice, while Tom is wearing a jean jacket over a Smith's t-shirt. They seem to sense a kindred spirit and walk over to me. Fabulous Mike Peters turns out to be rather conventionally named Scott, while Tom actually does turn out to be Tom. They're both from Iowa State and will be spending the year in Wales. I immediately dub them the Thompson Twins from Iowa. This is too funny. They light up when I tell them I'll be studying near London. That sounds so fabulous, gushes Scott, who is one of the more flamboyant guys I've ever met. I wish we could have gone there, but our school has an exchange program with Aberystwyth. I imagine the architecture and history must be pretty cool there, I respond, trying my best not to sound too elated that I'm not going to Wales. Essex is pretty modern and dull looking from what I can tell, almost Soviet-like. But who cares? We get to see so many shows, says Scott. Who are you into? I like your haircut. You look like you're an Echo and the Bunnymen or The Cure or something. Thanks, I say. I love those bands, and Jesus and Mary Chain, Psychedelic Furs, Sisters of Mercy, anything dark and moody. I really dig the Jesus and Mary Chain, says Tom, who's been quiet until now. I have their import singles. Me too, I say. My favorites are Never Understand and Just Like Honey. Scott sighs. That video for Just Like Honey is just so marvelous. They're lying around doing nothing, but they look so glamorous. What other stuff are you guys into, I ask. I really love a lot of the new romantic stuff, like Duran Duran and the Human League, Scott says. Oh, and I love Susie and the Banshees. I really love Susie Sue, he gushes. I'd say my favorite band is the Smiths, says Tom, straight to the point. Morrissey is a genius. Our conversation is interrupted by an announcement that we can finally board. I'm not seated too far away from Scott and Tom, and I'd really like some fun company on this flight, so I trade seats with a frat jock dude who's sitting next to them. He seems incredibly relieved when I offer to switch. I later overhear him muttering something about damn Eurofags to one of his buddies. I'm ashamed to admit to myself that a few years ago I actually hung out with guys like that. It's amazing how slight changes in hairstyle and clothing have somehow designated me as an outcast, a status that I pretty much welcome with open arms these days. The On-Flight movie is the most recent Bond flick, A View to a Kill. I saw it in the theater over the summer, but it seems appropriate that it's showing here. It's pretty cool that Duran Duran got to do the theme song, even though it's not nearly as good as the early classics like Girls on Film, Rio, or Planet Earth. Sorry, need a wine break here. The blonde stewardess, who looks to be on the north end of her 30s, asks